Okay, I got a little carried away at the end there and just started shred festing. But make no mistake, that can only happen with so many years of practicing and practicing and practicing, probably to a socially unhealthy level. But it's okay, I have friends now, too. Well, I'm friends with some, I don't know if they know we're friends. Anyway, and today's lesson is actually going to be on chord tones. You probably figured that by the title. So, don't worry though, that obviously got a little crazy with me just having a little fun, but we're going to do something really simple today. Okay, it's going to be a very simple exercise. I'll have a transcription on my Patreon that will be outlining everything we talk about today. But you probably won't necessarily need that. If you want to join the Patreon, that's completely up to you. I would love it if you did. It would be a great way for you to support the channel. But you just sit along with the lesson and you're going to learn something really important today. It will separate you from other players if you can get this down. Even if you're a fairly simple player, you don't have to be a super fancy player. This is really important, okay? Guys like Cliff Gallup, Brian Setzer, Grady Martin, all the great players, you know, they had a really great understanding of this, and I highly recommend that you should too. Is that a recommendation or a suggestion? Yeah, you get what I mean. So let's get into the lesson. We're going to be working over 3 chords, okay? A, D, and E. We're going to do the 1, 4, 5 thing. I did want to do this with a different set of chords, but I thought we'll stick to the Rockabilly thing. So we're going to start with 3 chords. We're going to be working with A, okay, D7, or D's fine, whichever way you want to look at it. And then we're going to come back to A, and then we're going to come back to E. Okay, I'll do a slightly different progression to what I did in the intro because it'll be a little easier for the exercise that we're about to do. So I'm just going to delete that loop. Let's start again. So just a bar of each. And that's it. Okay, so before we get into it, I'll explain what we're going to do. We are going to play. I'm going to play for you the root note of each chord. First, I'm going to play it in the lower octave. Then I'm going to play the root note of each chord in the higher octave. Okay. Then we're going to look at thirds. Okay. We're going to take the third of each chord, and I'm going to play just those over each chord change. And then we're going to take the 5th degree. Okay. We won't get into 7ths today. That can be something I can expand upon later as well. But we just want to get this basic concept down. So here we go. I'm going to start by playing root notes for each chord, and we're going to go through each of the things as I mentioned. Here we go. So this is A, D for the D chord, A for the A chord, E for the E chord. We're going to move it up an octave. D, okay, A there, and then E, or we could do it there, okay? Now we're going to go to thirds, okay? So the C sharp, 2, 3, the F sharp for the D, C sharp for A, G sharp for E. Now we're going to move it up an octave. C sharp here, F sharp there, I had to think about that, C sharp here, and G sharp here. Now let's move to the 5th degree. E, A for D, okay, E, and B. Move it all up an octave. Okay. How do I stop that thing? So, I didn't expect you to keep up with that. I would recommend, you learn that. So let's go through that really slow. Let me talk you through everything that I did there and explain how that can be utilized. What I was doing was just playing, as I mentioned, the root note, the 3rd note, and the 5th degree, but what are those things? What are chord tones? I probably could have defined that at the start of the video. The chord tones are just the main notes from the chord, okay? So an A major, it comprises of 3 main notes, an A, a C sharp, and an E. So what I've done there is map out those 3 notes for each chord, and why they're so important is if we can, whilst improvising, capture those notes at the right time, on the right beat, with the right feel, we can really tell the listener that we know what's going on. We know what chord we're in, and it really helps shape meaningful licks, okay? Rather than just shredding and hoping for the best while those chords move around, we actually have some information to work from that tells us, you know, maybe some keynotes we should be working towards, okay? So the root notes for those 3 chords, the A was on the 5th fret of the 6th string, the D was on the 5th fret of the 5th string, and the E was on the 7th fret of the 5th string, okay? And when we moved it up an octave, we had A at the 7th fret on the 4th string, okay? D on the 7th fret of the 3rd string, and E, best place probably for this position would have been 5th fret on the 2nd string. And back to A. So the 3rd degree is the 3rd degree of a major scale from each of those notes, okay? So A, B, C sharp is the 3rd degree of an A chord. That's at the 4th fret on the 5th string. And the same thing from D, D, E, F sharp, okay? We always use a major scale to find those numbers, okay? 3rd degree there is an F sharp. And then the 3rd degree, the good news is anything we do on a 4 chord in a blues, we move it up 2 frets, and that's the 5 chords equivalent. So the F sharp there becomes G sharp, which is the 3rd of an E, at the 6th fret on the 4th string. Next up, we have the octave above. So we have the C sharp here on the 6th fret of the 3rd string. Then we have the F sharp for the D, okay, on the 7th fret of the 2nd string. And then we have the G sharp for the E there on the 4th fret of the 1st string. Or we can move up 2 frets, as I mentioned before, but I like to know it's there. Okay, a little red hot tip with the thirds. Always sounds great to slide into that note from one behind, so you could even practice that. You could make a whole riff like that. If you've got a bass player chugging along, that would actually sound really, really great. So that's the 3rd degree. Let's go over which ones were the 5th degrees. So the 5th degree for A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is from the 7th fret of the 5th string. And then we move that across a 4th, just as we move A to D a 4th to get the 5th degree of a D chord. This stuff gets confusing, I know, but just bear with me. So D, there's the A there, the 5th degree. And then the 5th degree of E was a B, okay? We can play it here, or we can play it up here. Okay, now in the next octave we had the 5th degree of A, E being here, 5th degree of D or A here, the note A, so there on the 5th fret of the 1st string, and then we had the B, 5th degree of E, there on the 7th fret of the 1st string. Okay, so now that you've got those, how do we actually use them and how are they useful? Well, when I'm playing licks, I try to be conscious of where those notes are, and I play into them, I play off them. You can even use classic licks like, and then try and fall into those notes. You could use a pentatonic scale, for example, which is kind of, you know, that cheeky scale that uses things, all these kind of flat thirds, and it's got a flat third, a flat 7 against a major, but we can do that and it works really nice if we start incorporating those chord tones as well. Some of them are already in the scale, but for example, if I use an A minor pentatonic and resolve to a major third, it sounds wonderful. It's a really staple thing of rockabilly. So we can work off of those chord tones as well. Obviously, I'm focusing on the 3rd right now. I'm going to slide into the C sharp, and then I'm going to play a lick. Okay, and I'm actually resolving technically on the A, which is also a chord tone. Okay, we've even got the flat 7 in the 7 chord. I could have gone through those as well, but we'll just keep it simple today. So chromatically stepping into any of those chord tones always works really well. Let's actually practice this over A. I'll show you something really cool. Well, I'll show it to you slowly first. I'm going to walk 2 notes behind into the chord tones in A, okay, to the C sharp, the E that we mentioned, and the root note. Let's see how that sounds. I don't even know how that's going to sound. Let's just find out. It's cool. Okay. So obviously that's quite, it sounds like an exercise because it pretty much is, but there's something really musical about doing that as opposed to, again, just randomly playing chromatics. We have a point that we're taking off from or a point that we're going to. Okay, so the last thing that I want you guys to try now that we're here, don't worry if you can't do this perfect now. You might spend some time with this video till you can, but I'm going to play through that progression and I'm going to coach you through. I want you to have a go at playing along with me as I call out those notes. Okay, so we're going to start with root notes, obviously, then we're going to try and play all the thirds with the chord progression, then we're going to try and play all the fifths with the chord progression. I'll probably mess this up too. Just come along for the ride. Let's see how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Root note, that's A, D. Okay, we go back to A. Now we're going to play E. Let's go up the octave. A on the 7th. Then we're going to go to D. We're going to come back to A. Then we're going to go to the E. Now we're going to go thirds. C sharp, F sharp, straight across. C sharp, G sharp. Okay, we're going to move it up the octave. C sharp, F sharp, nearly lost it. Back to C sharp, then G sharp. Okay, let's do fifths. E. Then we're going to go to A for D. Then E. Then we're going to go to B. Now we're going to move it up an octave. E. A. E. And then we're going to do a B. And that's it. And then there's the third. I'm going to go on the fifth. Found the third there. There's the root note. I'm playing the root and the third. Grab the fifth and then the third, okay. I'm going to grab two tones. I'm grabbing the third and the fifth, okay, so little harmonies like that. Okay, started thinking about arpeggios there. That's the natural thing that will happen if you start putting chord tones together, is you get arpeggios. Don't think of arpeggios as, oh, I'm just picking out a chord like that. That sounds great, but you want to think of arpeggios in terms of scales so you can thread them into your little melodies that you're making. So that's it, guys. That's the whole lesson. How did you go with that challenge? I hope you enjoyed it. And just before I finish the video, I should thank, I've had a lot of Patreons join. I had a lot leave, but I had a lot join, which I'm really grateful for. So I've got to thank them really quick. That's Sean, Ian Wright, Garrett, Travis Penrod, Rusty Shackelford, Robert Eves, Jerry Breen, Robert Flauter, Luke Gomez, Jose Castaneda, Dominic Wilson, Josh Bennett, Tom Gunther, Michael Zapata, Cameron Singh, Brett Calloway, Nathan Cherney, Xavier Lassiter, Finlay Martin, and Gregory Onesink. Those names would have filled up the screen, I imagine. So, yeah, but make sure you check out the Patreon, consider joining, and of course check out my other videos. But most importantly, like, subscribe, those things, and thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you guys in the next one.